I watched dozens of weight loss videos made by people who have lost weight and kept it off. This is what I learned. Studies show that about half of all Americans are on a diet at any given time, and up to 80% of us have dieted at least once. Yet obesity rates keep rising, from 30% in 2000 to 42% by 2018. The rate of severe obesity, which is defined as a BMI over 40, doubled during that time. And childhood obesity rates have climbed from 5% in the early 1970s to nearly 20% today. There are plenty of theories about why this trend continues, from microplastics and social media influences to ultra-processed foods and sophisticated marketing. The truth probably lies somewhere in the mix of these factors. But I believe the simplest answer is this: a lack of knowledge. Even though we're more educated than previous generations and have access to an entire world of information in our pockets, many of us still don't fully understand how to manage our weight. What if the answers about weight loss have been in front of us all along? What if a terrifying lack of education is driving the obesity epidemic? After years of struggling with my own weight and finding my own path to healing, which you can hear more about in my previous video if you're interested, I became curious. Is lasting weight loss really possible? I watched dozens of videos, not from the typical fitness influencers, but from people who had been in my shoes, former binge eaters, people who had tried dieting many times, all of whom had lost significant weight and kept it off for years. And I was floored by how simple their advice really was. I've compiled a list of tips that came up over and over again in these videos, things I wish I had learned earlier in life. These tips and mindset shifts are practical, applicable to most people, and shockingly obvious once you really understand them. Since adopting the mindset shifts I'll share today, along with many of the practical tips, I've lost weight for the first time in my adult life, 10 pounds in 6 weeks. Here is almost everything I think you need to know to lose weight and keep it off. You can do it any way you want, but there's only one way to do it. It's easy to get caught up in the wild promises of various diets or workout plans, or to believe that you haven't lost weight because you're missing that one thing. But the truth is, there's really only one way to lose weight. You have to be in a calorie deficit. That means consuming fewer calories than your body burns. Every diet that works, whether it's keto, intermittent fasting, or vegan, works because it puts you into a calorie deficit. That doesn't mean all diets are created equally. Some provide better nutrition than others. Some are easier to follow the rules using only what you might consider junk food, and you might lose weight, but you might also be deprived of some essential nutrients. There may be some slight differences in diets as far as how much weight you can lose in what time frame. Some people swear by eating at specific times or ordering their food in specific ways to boost metabolism or manage glucose levels. And there are interesting studies supporting the idea that how, when, and what you eat can affect how you feel and function, which can affect the success of your dietary choices. But at the end of the day, the core of weight loss is still the calorie deficit. You can achieve that by eating fewer calories, exercising more, or doing a combination of both. The choice is yours. If you prefer the structure of a specific diet, the best option is to choose one that appeals to you and makes you feel good. You'll probably find what works best through some experimentation. Ultimately, the plan you can stick to is the one that's best for you. You're eating too much. This is a hard truth for many people to swallow, but if you're overweight, you're eating more calories than your body burns. Even if you have a slow metabolism, thyroid problems, or PCOS. Even if you think you're only eating 1,200 calories a day, if you're not losing weight, you're consuming more than your body really needs. Studies show that most people underestimate how much they eat. and often overestimate how many calories they burn. I've been there. In the past, when I tracked my food intake, I genuinely believed I was eating only 1,200 calories daily, yet I didn't see the scale move. And funnily enough, 1,200 calories wouldn't have been enough for me, but maybe not for the reason you'd expect. Many people latch onto the idea of starvation mode, where eating in a calorie deficit causes the body to hold on to fat. And while it's true that your metabolism will probably slow a bit as you lose weight, it won't stop you from losing weight in the long term. We know that extreme undereating eventually leads to emaciation. So logically, a moderate calorie deficit will still lead to weight loss over time. So the reason 1,200 calories wouldn't have been enough for me and isn't enough for the vast majority of people trying to lose weight has much more to do with the satisfaction level of eating at that calorie amount and whether that would be sustainable long term. And for many Americans, the issue isn't even just calories, but portion sizes. We often have no idea what a proper portion looks like because we learn to eat from our family, some of whom may not have had the healthiest eating habits themselves. This explains why having overweight parents often correlates with being overweight yourself. It's not just genetics, it's learned behaviors around food. You're probably not eating enough vegetables. Before I started tracking my diet, I thought I ate fairly healthily. Vegetables daily, fruit occasionally. But when I actually tracked what I ate, I was surprised to find that I wasn't eating anywhere near the volume of vegetables that I thought I was. And you might find the same. Incorporating more fruits and vegetables is not only great for overall nutrition, but also can naturally help with weight loss. Fruits and vegetables are naturally low in calories and high in nutrients. Half a pound of vegetables can range from 35 calories for something like cucumbers to up to 150 calories for something like grapes. Compare that to carbohydrates like rice, pasta, or bread, which can easily exceed 200 calories for half a pound, or meats, which, say, for ground lamb, might be something like 300 calories for a quarter pound. By replacing some of your more calorie-dense foods with vegetables, you can significantly reduce your calorie intake without feeling deprived. Many of us are aware that nutritional recommendations, at least in the US, are to eat 9 to 11 servings of fruits and vegetables a day. That number seemed impossible to me at first, but for most fruits and vegetables, a half cup is what's considered a serving. It's not as hard as you'd think to eat the recommended number of servings if you do things like follow the advice to fill half your plate with vegetables, which I think most of us probably aren't really doing. Chelsea, creator of the Lean with Plants podcast, said that if she could recommend one thing people should do to lose weight, it's to eat 1 to 2 pounds of vegetables every day. And that sounded daunting to me at first, but I realized after doing some math that half a pound is really not that much. 1 apple, banana, or bell pepper, 10 strawberries, 1 cup of blueberries or raspberries or chopped vegetables. Eating a cup of vegetables at lunch and another cup at dinner isn't hard. Add half a cup of fruit at breakfast and another as a snack, and you've already reached your goal. Track what you eat. Before putting any weight loss plan into place, I recommend starting with tracking. The first step to figuring out what you need to do is understanding what you're already doing. Tracking what you eat will give you a gut check. It can help you determine whether you're in the mental and emotional space to begin your weight loss journey. If you find that tracking triggers negative feelings or leads to self-judgment, you might need to focus on self-acceptance and non-judgment first. If you've been harsh with yourself in the past, it's natural that you might fall into old patterns of judgment during this process. If that happens, remind yourself, judgment isn't helpful, but assessment is. Feeling badly about yourself won't help your progress. It can even lead to binge eating or overly restrictive behavior, both of which can derail your efforts. The goal is to observe, not judge. When you track your diet and try to track everything you eat, even when it's annoying, and it will be. You'll get a clearer picture of what you're actually consuming. It doesn't have to be obsessive, but be as accurate and mindful as you reasonably can. If you've ever seen the British show Secret Eaters, you'll know how many people eat without even realizing it. And if you haven't seen that show, I do highly recommend it. I thought it was super interesting, and it helped me to think about my own behavior on a deeper level. Tracking what you eat will help you spot patterns and identify areas where you can improve. For me, tracking showed me how few fresh fruits and vegetables I was eating. I was already pretty aware of my fast food habits and how much I ate sweets at home, but tracking made me more mindful of my overall choices. You might discover habits that you hadn't noticed before. The key is to be honest with yourself and assess your behavior without judgment. Tracking throughout your weight loss journey is one of the best ways to stay on track for many people, but you actually don't need to count calories. You don't need to count calories during this stage. Technically, you don't need to count calories at all if you don't want to. It's helpful for some, not for everyone. For the initial tracking phase, I think what's most important is to know what you're eating. It can help to track the specific calories. You might be able to come up with a specific goal from there, but it's actually not necessary because for most of us, the key to weight loss will be replacing some of our calorie dense foods with foods that are less calorie dense, aka fruits and vegetables. And for most of us, we'll have a pretty good idea of what a calorie dense food is. So calorie dense foods tend to have added sugars, added fats, and added flours. Some reasonably calorie dense foods are totally natural, like avocado and nuts. So if you are eating tons of those ingredients, that will show up in your food log. Personally, I do track calories. I prefer to have a more specific idea. And because sometimes it is genuinely difficult to know, especially if you're making a lot of your own recipes, sometimes it can be hard to know exactly where you are if you don't measure and track. So that's my method. Personally, I love the Cronometer app. It offers some graphs and charts, and it tracks other nutritional values of the foods that are in their database, like vitamins and minerals. Many people also swear by apps like Lose It or MyFitnessPal. The best app to use, as usual, is the one that you enjoy the most, whatever makes it easier for you to stay consistent. Carbs are not the enemy. You can eat the cookie. Avoiding carbs is one piece of now traditional diet advice I always struggled with. There are plenty of places around the globe where people enjoy great longevity and excellent health markers, but they also eat refined carbs, like Japan, where white rice is eaten far more often than brown, or Italy, where white pasta is a regular staple in most regions. Cutting these foods out just never seemed essential to me for weight loss. Then I learned something fascinating. Gram for gram, white potatoes are the most satiating food. According to a specific study, it's worth looking it up and reading it if you want the full details and the full chart of foods that they tested out. Some experts believe potatoes contain compounds that affect hormones related to satiety, signaling your body to feel full. Carbs can also be crucial for a more psychological reason: satisfaction. One major reason so many diets fail is because people make themselves miserable by cutting out the foods they love or eating tiny portions. If you're like me and you love starchy carbs, avoiding them will only make you unhappy. And yeah, it's not fun to reduce portion sizes, but I actually realized that in many cases, the amount of carbs I ate left me feeling overly full. I had a habit of eating past the point of comfort just because I was enjoying what I was eating so much. Now, I replace some of that portion with more vegetables. And this way, I get to enjoy all the flavors without overeating. And here's the best part: you can have treats. In fact, I firmly believe you must allow yourself to enjoy treats occasionally, whatever that means for you, even if it means going over your calorie target occasionally or eating lighter meals the rest of the day to allow yourself the flexibility. You can absolutely try replacing sweets with fruit or making other swaps like that if that works for you, but for me, it doesn't always cut it. I like to assess whether I am actually still hungry after a meal. If I am, then instead of having dessert, I will more likely go for a low fat, low sugar Greek yogurt cup or a pudding cup. But I also love to bake. And I didn't want a life where I couldn't enjoy cookies or bake a cake and eat it. So I don't restrict myself from doing that. And this is a compromise I've made. My weight loss might be slower. I might even end up at a slightly higher weight to accommodate regularly eating the treats that I love. But I've also found ways to enjoy them more mindfully. I eat smaller portions, 1 cookie instead of 3, 6 Oreos instead of the entire sleeve, or a smaller slice of cake, and I do try to track the calories even when I don't love what I see. I also plan ahead, planning to eat more lightly on days I know I will indulge. But I still eat what I want, and I think you should too. Focus on what you can have. Yes, achieving a calorie deficit means reducing something, whether it's specific foods or overall amounts. But constantly focusing on what you can't eat is a recipe for frustration. More importantly, if you're like me, achieving a calorie deficit will actually require adding certain types of foods like fresh vegetables and lean protein. So it makes more sense to focus your mental energy on what to add rather than what to avoid. By focusing on adding foods, you'll likely end up naturally reducing your intake of less nutritious options without even trying. For example, I almost always plan my meals. This is something I need to do for ADHD reasons, basically. I'm making sure that I don't pass out from decision fatigue at the end of the day. So I like to plan my meals around making sure I get enough protein. That's a good base for me. As an omnivore, that usually means 3 to 4 ounces of meat or fish or 1 cup of beans. If I'm making a plate with protein, veggies, and carbs, I'll start with protein, then fill half my plate with vegetables. Whatever space is left on that plate can go to carbs. Here, I also use a smaller plate. So the plates that we call salad plates are closer in size to what would have been used as a dinner plate a few decades ago. So it helps with portion control if you eat off of salad plates as opposed to what we call dinner plates today, which are about 10 to 12 inches. If I'm weighing my food out, I'll measure out my 4 ounces of protein, and I'll measure out 8 to 12 ounces of vegetables, depending on how hungry I am, what vegetables I'm using, etc. And then, again, whatever space on my plate or in my bowl, I'll use for carbs. If I'm making a 1 bowl dish, I'll build a recipe around that 4 ounces of protein. Or if I'm using a recipe and it doesn't naturally include enough vegetables, I'll go ahead and add them. By focusing on what to add rather than on restricting carbs or other foods, I feel more satisfied and positive about hitting my goals. Do what you like. Swaps are an option, not a necessity. Healthy swaps are a big part of modern diet advice, but it's important to remember that they're just one option. Some swaps don't always hit the mark for me. They're not as satisfying or even similar enough to the original dish. For example, I tried swapping in mashed avocado for mayonnaise in tuna salad. And while I love avocado and it has good fats and is creamy, it really wasn't the same. It didn't work for me as a long-term substitute. If a swap doesn't work for you, don't force it. Eat a smaller portion of the food you truly enjoy instead. you'll feel more satisfied and less deprived in the long run. The reason this matters is that feeling satisfied with your meals is key to staying on track. If you constantly feel deprived because a swap isn't as good as the real thing, you're more likely to overeat or abandon the plan altogether. Satisfaction plays a big role in sustainability. This doesn't mean that you shouldn't try swaps. I have tried a lot of things, for example, using portobello mushroom caps to make a sort of a pizza, or using spaghetti squash with a regular pasta sauce. Sometimes these dishes work for me and I enjoy them, but for me personally, a lot of the satisfaction and interest I get from food comes from the food's texture, even more than its flavor. And so for me, a lot of swaps end up not working, not because they don't taste good. A lot of them taste perfectly good. I enjoy mushrooms, and spaghetti squash is fine, but it doesn't have the chew of a carbohydrate. And for me, that can make all the difference. The same goes for vegetables or other nutritious foods, whatever you like. Forcing yourself to eat vegetables that you don't enjoy won't help you be successful over time. I definitely believe that eating a variety of produce is good for you, but when I tried to force myself to eat vegetables I wasn't enthusiastic about, I found myself resistant to eating vegetables at all. So instead, I focus on vegetables I genuinely like, even if it means a little bit less variety, and I think that makes the most sense for everybody. Make it simple and easy. The human brain is wired to gravitate toward convenience. We're capable of doing difficult and inconvenient things, but when it comes to everyday habits, it's much easier to stick with something if we make it simple and accessible. One strategy that's helped me stick to cooking at home is developing a list of 20 or so go-to recipes that meet my nutritional goals. Each week, I'd pick 5 of them, plus one wild card from my recipe collection or from a blog or something I was just particularly craving that week. And it made meal planning pretty easy. All of my go-to recipes were quick and simple to prepare, so even when I was tired, I could still usually get dinner on the table. I've also had phases of my life where even picking from a list of 20 meals was, believe it or not, a bit too taxing, especially when I'd get to the afternoon or evening and I'd be looking at my list of 5 to 7 recipes and I'd have to pick something from that list at the end of my day and say, oh, what do I feel like eating? It was a lot. It can be a lot. Strategy 2, the quote Taco Tuesday plan. So this is taking a cue from, well, Taco Tuesday, Meatless Monday. Essentially, this means take every day of your week, think about what that day usually looks like for you, pick a type of meal that would work for you on that day, and repeat this every day, every week. It doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be the exact same recipe every time. So I say Taco Tuesday, but for example, that might mean chicken fajitas one week, and the next week it might mean black bean and guacamole tacos, and the week after that it might mean shrimp tacos with a mango salsa. The deal is just to know that Tuesdays mean tacos, and it really helps with the decision fatigue, especially at the end of the day. The third strategy is something everybody is, I'm sure, already familiar with: meal prep. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that you prep absolutely everything at the beginning of your week and maybe you only pick one meal to have every day and you've had it prepped and portioned out. I don't do that. That's too much work, and I also actually kind of find it boring over the course of the week, and I'm more likely to get delivery or something else if I have to eat the same exact thing every day for 7 days. But for me, meal prep might look like getting all of the vegetables chopped and put into containers and set in the fridge. Sometimes I will take my packages of protein and I will portion them out into individual zip top bags, sometimes with a marinade or a seasoning mix. I might mix up a sauce or a seasoning mix that I'm going to use that week. Sometimes I'll even take the ingredients for a specific recipe and I'll group them together in the fridge so that they're all in one place when I go to get them. There's a lot of different ways that you can prep your kitchen and your fridge and your pantry to set you up for success during the week. Now, I know I just said that I would get bored and tend to go for delivery if I have to eat the same thing too many times in a row. But I will say that I've actually been finding some success with having every day be more or less exactly the same for breakfast and lunch. I would do or have been doing oatmeal for breakfast. Oatmeal with berries has been my go-to personally. Sometimes I do like to mix it up, having lunches be the same every day, or even planning to have lunch the same 4 days out of the week and making one recipe at the beginning of the week that has 4 servings. It does make reaching for that healthy option so easy. It's right there. It's already made. It just needs to be heated up. If you can convince yourself to do that, it will make this process a lot easier. I also always have easy plan Bs on hand. So sure, I do eat the same breakfast and lunch almost every day now, at least during the week. But if I get tired of it, I can swap in something else that's nutritious and available. I like keeping jarred pasta sauce and canned soups in my pantry for this purpose. I also have a few standbys in the freezer. Having these backups keeps things simple and prevents me from feeling stuck. Another little tip, if there's a food you find especially difficult to refrain from binging on, consider not keeping it in the house. For me, that's Oreos or Jenny's ice cream. I could try to moderate my consumption, and I have, but honestly, I really prefer to just not have them on hand in my house. And that doesn't mean I don't have treats in the house. Believe me, we do. I just try to stock ones that don't tempt me to overindulge. That way I can still enjoy a treat, but it's easier to keep it to 1 or 2. Walk it off. A lot of diet advice includes exercise as a way to offset calories consumed, but the truth is, moderate exercise doesn't burn that many calories. People love to say you can't outrun a bad diet, but that's kind of true. The value of exercise goes far beyond burning calories, and out of all the options for physical activity, walking is one of the best. Of course, the best form of exercise is the one you'll actually do. For most people, walking is the most accessible and achievable form of exercise. It's something most of us can do just by stepping out the front door. If walking outdoors isn't an option, there are now low-cost treadmills that make walking indoors easy for many people. Walking is low impact, making it gentler on the joints compared to more intense activities. Walking at a steady, moderate pace often puts your heart rate into the fat-burning zone 2 range, where your body is more likely to use fat for energy rather than carbohydrates. It's important to know that exercise itself only accounts for about 5 to 10% of the daily calorie burn for most people. Most of your calories are actually burned just by the activity that your body does to keep you alive. Pumping your blood, breathing in oxygen. There is also non-exercise activity, which burns significantly more than exercise. But walking still comes into play here. This is where you might think things like parking further away or getting up to clean your house more, running more of your errands in person. That's all stuff that will increase your calorie burn, just the amount of calories you naturally use over time without even trying. It's certainly possible to lose weight without exercising at all, but it is easier when you incorporate a moderate amount of physical activity, and walking was highly recommended by just about everyone I've listened to. Beyond burning calories, regular walking improves mood, which can help you make better choices throughout the day, and enhances your general cardiovascular health. It helps keep you limber and helps prevent the loss of lean muscle as you lose weight. Personally, even though walking doesn't burn a huge number of calories, I found that the amount it does burn is enough to help me be just a little bit more flexible with my calorie goal. I don't walk or exercise to earn calories, nor do I walk a certain amount to burn off specific treats. However, I know that the more time I walk, the longer I can do so comfortably, the more flexibility I'll have with my meals, not just that day, but probably later in the week. If you haven't engaged in regular physical activity in a long time, which was the case for me when I started walking again, aim for short, regular walks of just 15, 10, or even 5 minutes. Walk around your block or around your living room. Walk a few days every week, every day if you can manage it, and gradually increase your time spent walking. It may take as long as 15 minutes to get into the fat-burning heart rate zone, so walks of at least 30 minutes will get you the most benefit, but you should walk when and how much you're able, even if that's 3 short walks instead of 1 long one. Hydrate, hydrate, hydrate. The importance of drinking water goes beyond simply filling your stomach to help you feel full faster, although that doesn't hurt. Water is essential for every system in your body to function properly. It carries nutrients and oxygen to your cells, cushions your joints, protects your organs and tissues, and helps regulate your body temperature and blood pressure. Staying hydrated helps regulate your energy levels, improves digestion, and supports your body's ability to burn fat more efficiently. Simply put, staying hydrated keeps everything running smoothly from digestion to circulation. Drinking water before meals can help prevent overeating by making you feel fuller, and staying hydrated throughout the day keeps your energy levels up, improves your workouts, and aids in recovery. Even mild dehydration can lead to brain fog and low energy, which may cause cravings for sugary or high-calorie foods. When your body is looking for a quick energy boost, it's easy to make choices that don't align with your goals. Choosing water over sugary drinks is also one of the simplest ways to cut empty calories from your diet. Sugary drinks can spike your blood sugar and leave you feeling hungry or tired later, whereas plain water helps keep your energy stable without adding calories. Experts recommend an average daily water intake of about 15.5 cups or 3.5 liters for men and 11.5 cups or 2.5 liters for women, factoring in all sources of fluid. This means your morning coffee or tea, as well as the water that's in the foods you eat, like fruits, vegetables, and, of course, broth. If you're exercising or losing water through sweat, you should increase your water intake and may also want to replace electrolytes lost through sweat as well. In hot weather, you may also need more water as your body works harder to cool itself down. If you're not a fan of plain water, try adding a squeeze of lemon or lime juice or infuse it with cucumber, mint, or berries. Herbal teas or tisanes and sparkling waters are also great ways to stay hydrated without added sugars. Black and green teas and coffee also count as liquid intake, especially if your body is already used to consuming them. But since caffeine can be dehydrating, non-caffeinated beverages are typically the most hydrating to your system. Start slow, be consistent. One of the biggest mistakes people make when trying to lose weight is attempting to change everything at once. The key to lasting weight loss is to start slow and build consistent habits. Whether it's tracking your food, exercising, or making healthier food choices, focus on 1 or 2 changes at a time. Gradual progress is much more sustainable than going all in and burning out. Remember, research shows it takes time to form new habits. On average, about 66 days for a behavior to become automatic. That's why consistency, not intensity, is the key. The more you repeat small positive actions, the more they become ingrained in your routine, making long-term weight loss more achievable. It's important to have patience. Progress may be slow at first, but those small changes done consistently over time lead to big results. Be patient and trust the process. Sleep it off. Sleep is one of the most underrated parts of a successful weight loss plan. When you're sleep deprived, your body produces more ghrelin, the hunger hormone, and less leptin, the hormone that signals fullness, making you more likely to overeat. A lack of sleep also affects your energy levels and decision making it harder to stay on track with your goals. When you don't get enough sleep, your body also craves quick energy, which often leads to cravings for sugary or high-carb foods. Sleep deprivation also slows your metabolism, so you burn fewer calories throughout the day. Together, these effects can make it much harder to lose weight or maintain your progress. Lack of sleep also raises cortisol, the stress hormone, which can increase fat storage, especially around your midsection. High cortisol levels interfere with your body's ability to burn fat, further complicating weight loss. Prioritizing 7 to 9 hours of sleep each night allows your body to recover, regulate hormones, and optimize your weight loss efforts. Getting enough sleep is just as important as diet and exercise for long-term success. Without enough rest, even the best diet and exercise plan can be hard to sustain. Short-term sleep deprivation can leave you feeling tired and hungry the next day, while long-term sleep issues can lead to weight gain, higher stress levels, and even increased risk of metabolic diseases like diabetes. You don't have to like it, but you do have to do it. We all have to do things we don't particularly enjoy from time to time. Many people don't love their jobs, but they go anyway because they need to make a living. Intellectually, I understood this concept, but when it came to weight loss, it was a lesson I still needed to learn. Here's why this was a challenging lesson for me, and maybe it will resonate with some of you. I grew up in a dysfunctional and controlling household. When I finally moved out for good, I made a deliberate choice to prioritize my own happiness. I refused to take jobs I didn't want, avoided clients I didn't like, and made my life as easy and pleasurable as I possibly could. And I had the privilege to do that, for which I'm very grateful. During this time, I also began adapting to my mental health challenges: anxiety, depression, ADHD diagnosed late in life, and sensory sensitivities. This meant giving myself a lot of grace, doing things only when I felt like it, and avoiding anything too difficult. For a while, this approach was deeply restorative and healing. But over time, I realized that this mindset wasn't serving me anymore. While I think it had been necessary in the short term, in the long term, avoiding discomfort wasn't helping me grow or achieve my goals. Weight loss behaviors like meal prepping, eating what I planned, or going for a walk often fell into the category of things I didn't want to do, but needed to do. The truth is, you don't have to want to do these things, you just have to do them. Motivation is fleeting and fickle. It's easy to stay motivated when you feel good, but the moment you're tired, stressed, sad, or frustrated by lack of progress on the scale, motivation can vanish. That's why you can't rely on motivation. Instead, rely on consistency and discipline. Do what you plan to do even when you don't feel like it. Try not to make excuses for yourself or let yourself off the hook too often. That said, this isn't the same as forcing yourself when you're truly struggling. If you're sick, in a depressive episode, or dealing with a major life challenge, it's okay to modify your plans. Do what you can, but give yourself the grace to rest when necessary. Being consistent doesn't mean ignoring your mental health or pushing yourself to the brink. It means doing the best you can under the circumstances. The key is finding a balance. Don't make yourself miserable, but recognize that a little discomfort is okay. In fact, discomfort is beneficial in the long run. It's how we build emotional and mental resilience, which is essential for getting through truly hard times. You don't need to be perfect. This is a lesson that tripped me up time and again in the past, and honestly, it's something I still struggle with today. Seeking perfection is toxic, unsustainable, and in the end, unnecessary. For example, when I was dieting before, I thought I needed to hit the exact same calorie goal every single day. But that's actually illogical. Our bodies don't have the exact same needs every day. In fact, research shows that too much consistency can actually backfire. When your brain and body begin to anticipate the same thing day after day, they can enter a kind of stasis mode, adapting to your habits in a way that slows progress. It's actually better to vary your routine a little. eating a different number of calories each day, or averaging slightly different amounts from week to week. This keeps your brain and body on their metaphorical toes, encouraging continued progress. Allowing for flexibility also makes it easier to navigate life's unpredictability. Whether it's an off day, an unexpected treat, hormonal shifts, date night, or a holiday, it's normal for things to deviate from the plan occasionally. The key is to keep your general goals in mind without being so strict that you start criticizing yourself for slipping. Self-criticism isn't helpful and often leads to feelings of failure, which can derail your progress entirely. Remember, progress, not perfection, is what leads to long-term success. Weight loss isn't about never having an indulgent moment or skipping a workout. It's about consistently moving in the right direction, even if you have a few missteps along the way. It's okay to be hungry, but you don't have to starve. One of the things I've learned from the dozens of weight loss cookbooks I've read and edited over the years is that many in the diet cookbook world don't seem to know what they're doing. So much of their advice revolves around eating small portions of everything. But when people are used to eating large portions, that approach simply isn't sustainable. Here's the big problem I have. These cookbooks often fail to emphasize eating enough vegetables. They'll recommend a reasonable portion of protein, a reasonable portion of carbs, and often the exact same amount of vegetables, which is ridiculous. Vegetables should be the largest portion on your plate. One of the few programs that I see stands out here a little is Weight Watchers, where I think on one of the programs, non-starchy fruits and vegetables are 0 points and you can technically eat as many as you want. But from my observation, the focus in programs like that isn't actually on maximizing vegetable take, unfortunately. And as a result, hunger often becomes a bigger part of the weight loss experience than it needs to be. The truth is, you actually don't need to be hungry at all to lose weight. What you need is to eat enough protein, healthy fats, and fiber to stay full. You might be surprised how easy it is to stick to your calorie goals when you focus on nutrient-dense whole foods. It's entirely possible to eat a sufficient volume of nutrient-dense foods to feel full while staying in a calorie deficit for most people. This point came up repeatedly in many of the YouTube videos I watched, and it especially resonated with me. It's a crucial approach for people recovering from binge eating disorder or those with a scarcity mentality around food who might feel emotionally triggered by hunger. Knowing that you can eat as many vegetables as you want can help you feel in control. When you focus on high volume, low calorie foods, you can eat large portions and still lose weight. I found this to be true for myself too. I consider myself someone with a big appetite. I'm an always hungry type. Yet when I shifted to smaller portions of carbohydrates and larger portions of vegetables and other nutrient-dense foods, I realized I could eat until I was genuinely full while still staying on track. That said, I also think it's important to get comfortable with the feeling of occasional hunger. For years, I ate whenever I felt hungry, unless I was in a restrictive eating phase or couldn't access food. I associated hunger with discomfort, not just physically, but emotionally. So I snacked between meals more often than I needed to. Now I understand that it's okay to feel a little hungry sometimes. I'm not going to starve. If I've eaten a decent meal and I still feel hungry afterward, I don't rush to eat more. Instead, I'll drink some water or tea and wait. If I'm still genuinely hungry after 15 or 20 minutes, I might have a little more food. But I'm learning to relax into the feeling of hunger, trusting that I'll always have access to food when I need it. Compromise will be key. Decide your discomfort. Several YouTubers I watched mentioned this concept, and I found it incredibly enlightening, not just for weight loss, but for life in general. Many decisions we make involve some level of discomfort. The key is to recognize that both choices come with their own kind of discomfort and to thoughtfully decide which one you're willing to face. Take weight loss as an example. Would you rather experience the discomfort of arranging your life to create a calorie deficit with all the planning, adjustments, and sacrifices that entails, or the discomfort of staying at your current weight. There will be discomfort either way, whether now or in the future. The choice is yours. Choose your discomfort. This applies to smaller decisions too. For instance, consider the speed at which you want to lose weight. The more you restrict your calorie intake, the faster you'll likely lose weight. But there's a limit for most of us. For me, dropping too low in calories leaves me feeling unsatisfied and frustrated. So I had to ask myself, would I rather deal with the discomfort of a very low calorie diet or accept the slower progress that comes with eating a bit more? Other decisions might include, would I rather risk gaining a little weight or making no progress during a holiday vacation or date night in exchange for relaxing and enjoying myself? Would I rather eat fewer calories during the week, potentially feeling hunger some days to indulge more on the weekend? Or would I rather eat more during the week and feel deprived when I go out with friends who are eating what they want? There's no way around it. Discomfort is part of the process. But the good news is you get to choose which kind of discomfort works best for you. Some people opt for the discomfort of a repetitive, boring diet to enjoy the satisfaction and success of long-term weight loss. For others, variety or enjoyment in their food was non-negotiable, even if it meant slower progress. Both choices are valid. It's about finding what works for you. Sometimes the choices won't feel quite so deep, but they'll still require compromise. One thing I've learned is that you may need to negotiate with yourself to find the right balance between enjoyment and making the quote-unquote best choices. For example, there are people who absolutely cannot stand skim milk. For me, plain, non-fat Greek yogurt just makes me sad. The important thing is to acknowledge your choices, weigh the discomforts, and decide what trade-offs you're willing to make. Compromise isn't failure, it's a strategy for sustainability. You don't have to do math or get your metabolism tested, but you can if you want to. You don't need advanced math or expensive tests to lose weight. All you really have to do is observe. Since we know that weight loss comes down to being in a calorie deficit, the first step is figuring out where you are right now. If you've been tracking your food, you should already have a general idea of how many calories you're eating per day on average. To get a clearer picture, I recommend averaging your intake over the course of a week or two. Once you know your starting point, you can set your calorie goal based on that. And you should start slowly. There's no need, and I don't really recommend, starting with a large calorie deficit like 1,000 calories per day, unless it's medically necessary and supervised by a doctor. Even a small deficit, such as 200 calories a day, will result in gradual, gentle weight loss. And if you aren't counting calories, just start replacing some of what you already naturally eat on a daily basis with lower calorie density foods like vegetables. That will give you an automatic reduction in calories without actually having to count them. If you aren't seeing progress after a couple of weeks, lower your calorie goal a little bit more or do a little bit more replacement with the low calorie density foods. If you still aren't seeing progress, and if you're not tracking calories, you might try actually tracking calories and try to be as accurate as possible. If you are tracking calories and you're still not seeing progress, the issue may be tracking accuracy. It's actually really easy to underestimate calories or forget to log small snacks, treats, or condiments. Try being a little more precise and you should start seeing results. If you hit a plateau, lower your calorie target again. It really can be that simple. And again, calorie counting isn't necessarily what's going to work for everyone. I prefer it because I am a planner and uncertainty really bothers me. I would rather have as much data as possible, but that's what works for me. For some people, the idea of actually weighing and or measuring all of their food, writing down every little thing is stressful, overwhelming. So you don't have to do it that way. But if you would like to feel more certain about your starting point, there are a couple of tools that can help you. Easily accessible and totally free on tons of websites is the TDEE calculator. TDEE stands for Total Daily Energy Expenditure, and it gives you an estimate of how many calories your body likely burns per day based on a formula that takes into consideration your age, height, weight, and estimated activity level. Many calculators will also provide recommended calorie targets for weight loss depending on your desired pace. It is an estimate, but it's a really good place to start. Because it's so easy to overestimate the amount of calories you burn, a lot of people recommend using the sedentary setting on it, even if you do some moderate exercise. But it's totally up to you. You might experiment, you might see what your energy expenditure looks like at a sedentary level or at a light level to give yourself a range. All totally valid. The other thing you can consider is metabolic testing. If you want a more personalized result, you can actually get your metabolism tested. A metabolic test will measure how many calories your body burns at rest. It's simple. Essentially, it requires going into a room, having a breathing mask apparatus put over your face, and resting completely still for, I think, about 10-15 minutes while it measures your breathing. And I believe what it actually does is it measures the amount of calories that you're burning through your breath, because essentially burning calories is sort of like the calorie energy going from a solid state to a gaseous state. So it's actually super cool and scientific if you're a nerd like I am. So I had my metabolism tested because I was super curious, and I found out that my resting metabolic rate, or RMR, was slightly higher than what would normally be expected for someone my age, height, and weight. And that was actually a great thing for me because it meant that I had so much potential. I didn't have a slow metabolism I was fighting against. I had a metabolism that was actually overperforming slightly, and I could work with that. I would say for me, while it was nice to have the confirmation, the results weren't hugely different from some of the TDEE calculation estimates that I had done. So I definitely wouldn't say it's a necessity. You don't need to overcomplicate the process. By tracking, observing, and making small, gradual adjustments, you can find what works for your body without stress or expensive tools. But know that if you want to dig in and get a little bit more specific, there are options for that. Enjoy the process. Weight loss isn't a punishment. Although weight loss can be challenging, it doesn't have to feel like a constant struggle. The process is much more sustainable when you find ways to enjoy the journey. This could mean tracking your progress and celebrating milestones, noticing how your body changes over time, or simply finding satisfaction in the small wins like feeling more energized or completing an extra lap on a walk. Enjoying the process doesn't mean it won't sometimes be hard, but it does mean reframing how you think about weight loss. Instead of seeing it as something you have to do or a punishment for past choices, approach it as something you get to do, an act of self-care, an opportunity to feel better physically and emotionally. When you treat the process as something positive, you're much more likely to stick with it for the long term. Consider what you already enjoy or could enjoy about making healthier choices. Maybe you take pride in preparing colorful, nourishing meals, or you find joy in moving your body in ways that feel good, like dancing, swimming, or walking. Whatever it is, lean into it. Weight loss doesn't have to and shouldn't feel like deprivation or misery. It can and should be a practice in nurturing yourself. You can't hate yourself thin, but loving yourself and your body can include wanting to lose weight. This is a concept the body positivity and fat activism communities get both very right and very wrong. What they get right is the truth that you can't hate yourself thin. Approaching weight loss from a place of shame or self-hatred often leads to self-destructive behaviors like overly restrictive dieting or binge eating, which sabotage both your mental and physical health. Shame-centered weight loss can also lead to a cycle of guilt, unhealthy food choices, and further shame. Losing weight should never be a punishment. It's not something you deserve for bad behavior or past choices. With this mentality, you're unlikely to succeed at weight loss, at health, or at self acceptance. Where these communities sometimes miss the mark, though, is in the idea that loving your body is incompatible with wanting to lose weight. That's simply not true. Many people who successfully lose weight see their efforts as an expression of self love and care. Wanting to lose weight doesn't mean you don't love yourself as you are. It means you care about yourself enough to make a change you believe will benefit you. We wouldn't tell someone they hated themselves for wanting to pursue more education or professional certification. So why do it about someone wanting to change their physical body? Weight loss doesn't have to be about looking better or fitting a certain societal ideal. However, if you want to lose weight for aesthetic reasons, that's okay too. Weight loss is a deeply personal choice we make about our own bodies, and your reasons, whether they're about aesthetics, health, comfort, or any combination, are valid. Wanting to lose weight doesn't make you inherently fat phobic. You can want to lose weight for yourself while fully supporting the rights, respect, and dignity of others at any size. Advocating for respect and equal treatment for people of all sizes doesn't conflict with wanting something different for your own body. Both things can be true. In fact, loving yourself and your body can make the process of weight loss easier. When you make choices from a place of love and care, you're more likely to make healthy, sustainable decisions. Think about how many of us in caregiving roles, whether as parents, spouses, or friends, make healthier choices for the people we love. We want them to be happy and well, so we cook them nutritious meals, encourage them to rest, and celebrate their successes. Why not extend that same love and care to ourselves? Weight loss doesn't have to come from a place of self-criticism or dissatisfaction. It can be a way to show yourself kindness, prioritize your health, and work toward a life that feels good for you. Weight loss may be, at heart, a simple matter of burning more calories than you consume. But successful weight loss is about finding what works for you, balancing progress with flexibility, and approaching the process with kindness and care for yourself. You don't have to change everything overnight. Maybe your first step is simply tracking what you eat for a few days, adding more vegetables to your meals, or going for a short walk. Whatever you choose, remember that every small action adds up over time. When you go in the right direction, no matter how slowly, eventually you'll end up where you want to be. If you've been struggling, hopefully this roadmap will help you get there. Thanks for watching.